Hey guys, so we just got off recording a podcast with the CEO of LAMS. It is an apparel company, but actually a health and wellness company that helps support our resistance or resilience towards EMF. His name is Arthur Menard, and a great human being as well.
Yeah, and when you listen to him speak, you can just tell he just oozes integrity, and he's an engineer, and he has this very investigative mind, but also just a very relaxed and fun way to approach a challenging health topic, one that requires a bit of attention and attention on our daily lives, and he's come up with a solution to help people mitigate some of the stressors from the environment.
Yeah, it's a good one for everyone to listen to. So share it out with your family, your friends, listen to it with your kids so they get an understanding of, their new world too, so that we're not resisting it, but we're trying to find ways to adapt to it.
Yeah, tune in. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Health Ignited. I'm here with Dr. Sonia Jensen again, of course, who's my lovely partner in health on this podcast, Health Ignited, where we're helping people ignite their health freedom through awareness and education and amazing stories, and most importantly, the incredible guests that we get a chance to bring on. So today we've got a special guest for you. This is a topic that we discuss a lot, especially with our kids and their growing bodies and all the different things that we don't really know are going on around us that are definitely having impact on our health, and that's electromagnetic frequencies. As the world of technology continues to grow and evolve, what are the strategies that we can implement in order to have a healthier body and be more resilient? And so these are the conversations we're gonna have with this absolute groundbreaking technology where fashion meets technology, actually. And this gentleman's name is Arthur Menard. You may have seen him on his TED Talk or the product itself. Maybe you're trying them. It's called LAMS. So Arthur, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Super excited.
Yeah. So I gotta ask, like, and you probably get this question a lot, but why LAMS? I mean, I love, the imagery of like a fuzzy, soft, texture to sort of entrap or support the jiggly bits, the cherries, the diamonds, the important stuff on the body. But please tell us, what got you into the name?
Yeah, it's a question that we get all the time, actually. And when we started working on the product, we had we were trying to nail down the perfect name, and the first question that we're getting was, is it comfortable? Because when we're saying, well, it's radiation-proof pearl, we are creating a shield, an electromagnetic shield around your body. Well, the first thing that came to mind for people was like a piece of armor. And obviously, don't really want to wear this on a daily basis. I'm not sure I want to wear this at all. And so we went for, and we it took us a lot of efforts and actually hundreds of fabric prototypes to get to a fabric that today is, according to most of our customers, more comfortable than what they're used to wearing. And so we wanted a name that represents this effort and makes you feel comfortable. And lambs are also protected by their wool, but in a very comfortable way. So in the same manner, lambs protects your essential organs in a very comfortable and stylish way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you guys, I hope you guys get a chance to check out the podcast, because I love how you sort of like reframed your style of marketing, and it's really reframing even the words you used. I mean, we know of other companies like Under Armour, for example, which sort of takes that sort of like rigid sort of, you can do hard things kind of approach, which is a great name, and it makes sense for, I guess the athletes that they're working with. But you kind of took it in a completely different direction, which is, just how you use on the TED Talk, using humor. We live in a world right now where everything's like the war on drugs, the war on the virus, the war on terrorism. Everything is about like attack and protect and, defensive and isolate. And really, like, you're just coming, well, we just want to provide you something that's soft, and at the same time you're providing support and protection. It's completely flipped on its head. I love that.
Yeah, and like, it's interesting because Under Armour would have been a great name for us in theory, but at the same time, what we're about with LAMS is helping you be in better health today and have a better living tomorrow. And not necessarily, we're not campaigning against anything. We're not against wireless radiation. We're not against, like what have you, like we're not on a war against anything. We're just on a journey to try and better our health. And we're providing a tool for that, for a specific matter that is impacting most of us. And then the second reason for this is Under Armour probably appeals to, just on the name, like, a tough name like this appeals to athletes, obviously, but we're for everybody, because everybody has a cell phone today, or 96% of the worldwide population, something crazy like this. Everybody has cell phone antennas outside of their homes, and everybody, and a lot of people have Wi-Fi connected devices, Bluetooth, etc., etc. So, LAMS felt like something that a lot more people could get behind from from a name perspective than something that would have been mega armor, super shield, crazy protection.
Yeah, I love the reframe of that, because I know as a mom, I've had to create that reframe for myself of not being against technology and really learning how to live with it. And, we teach a lot on just toxicity from the world and the stresses that we have, and how we can't necessarily control those external factors all the time, but we can control our internal world. So whether that's our mindset, what we're eating, and our daily habits, and this is just one of those things that we can add to that list or that lifestyle, so that we can really understand the effects of the EMF is having on our health. So my question to you is, like, why EMF, and like what brought you into this journey, and why you created this company and chose clothing as the support for it?
Yeah, love this question, and I'll go back to kind of my history before LAMS. I grew up very much with a mind for solving problems, so I've been creating stuff since as long as I can remember. And early in my teens, I started becoming very passionate about health, the topic of health in general, and I saw people around me, like friends of families or family members, developing the traditional illnesses that you get as you're getting old, like cardiovascular disease or cancer, that kind of stuff, and realized that I was early enough in my life that the choices that I would take would compound, and that I had what I was doing today had a direct impact on my likelihood of being healthier longer. And so it kind of fell into that world, ended up training as an engineer in the biology field. And so EMFs have been on my radar for quite a while. But it all started, the LAMS story started at dinner with friends, where we all sat down around the dinner table, put our cell phones on the table, and we started discussing the fact that it's funny because we were all aware that wireless radiations or cell phone radiation were not good for our bodies. We had heard this one way or another, and we all were carrying our cell phones in our pockets, or every single one of us. And this is a moment where I was like, okay, well, clearly there has to be a better way than being aware and beating ourselves up, being like, oh yeah, that's that thing. Yep, not great. And to be kind of more at peace with technology, because obviously also being again why I grew up with all that stuff. Like, I'm not getting rid of my cell phone anytime soon. I'm not sure I can get around Los Angeles without Google Maps either. And so decided to do a lot more research into the impact of EMFs. And the first thing I came up across was the World Health Organization website and their categorization of EMF as a class 2B human carcinogen, which is the same categorization as car exhaust fumes. And that
I don't think people realize that, right? Like that's significant right there, just to see it's in the same category.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, that was a massive aha moment, because I was like, I remember being in my bedroom doing this research, and you get a picture of this like small student bedroom at the time. And I was like, okay, well, there's barely space for a car here, but if there were one running, I would not be staying here for sure. Mm-hmm. But I'm definitely drenched in Wi-Fi, cell phone radiation, all of this. yeah, and so that triggered my inventor self to try and find a solution. And then that's how lamps came to be. Realized that, well, wireless radiation are how our devices are communicating with one another. So with Wi-Fi, that's how your computer is communicating with the internet. With your cell phone, that's how you're getting calls, texts, and all your internet notifications, etc. And so it's necessary for the world we live in, for modern technology to exist. And so we can't really stop our devices from emitting EMFs. So the only thing we can do today is to prevent EMFs from reaching our body. And the way to do this is to, or at least like the best way to do this, that the only way that we've found so far, is to create apparel that shields your body. And that's what we set out to do.
That's amazing. So, people can actually, purchase these devices that can measure the amount of radiation that's coming off of maybe a tower or bedroom in your home. And you can sort of look and see where there's greater disruption in your body. I'm curious, what kind of testing went into these, to the different clothing? Like, how did you guys measure that blocking effect?
Yeah, so we obviously have the devices that you talked about are called EMF meters. Mm-hmm. They're very helpful to kind of realize at least the amount of radiation that you're exposed to. Another good test, by the way, is just turn on your Wi-Fi and look at how many Wi-Fi signals you have access to. Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy. No, but the testing of the garment itself, it's done in laboratory, and we have a very specific testing protocol, which is it's done on what's called human phantoms, which are recreation of the human body from a physical and chemical standpoint. And then we essentially test. So you have a receptor, EMF receptor, inside the phantom. You put a traditional garment on it. You direct EMFs. You put a phone next to it, or whichever type of source of EMF you want. And then you measure how much radiation you're getting on the other side. And then you do the same thing, but with lamps this time. And what we find is that we're reducing 99.9% of the radiation that your body is getting, between 99.96 and 99.99, depending on the frequency.
That's amazing. What would it be for like traditional just cotton or polyester garment? Like, does that do anything?
Not really. No.
No,
wow. It doesn't. So the reason for this is because we're using a physical principle called electromagnetic shielding, which is kind of a mouthful, but it's actually super simple to. It sounds like a mouthful and it sounds super advanced. And it is, because it's used in spacesuits, but it's also used in your microwave, which is a little bit less sexy. And the electromagnetic shielding works this way. Wireless radiation are called electromagnetic frequencies. So they have two components, an electric field and a magnetic field. And when the electric field gets in contact with a conductive mesh of fibers, if the size of the hole of the mesh is smaller than the wavelength of the radiation, that's again a mouthful, but picture the fence behind me. Since the size of the holes are smaller than my head, I'm not able to go through this fence. Kind of similar principle here. The electric field essentially disappears, and the magnetic field disappears as well. So that's kind of the simplification of how it works. And we're using silver fiber in order to create this electromagnetic shield all around your body, which again, very important that it's surrounding as much as possible. Same principle as a fence. It's not very efficient if it's not, if it's just on 3 feet and that's it.
That's incredible. So one aspect is it's changing the dimension for wavelengths to pass through, but the other one is this sort of electron, gradient or landscape with the silver that also provides that protection. And so it's happening on multiple levels as space sort of entry point, but also on this whole electrical interference level too. I'm just trying to like simplify it maybe in my own mind and help, and please jump in.
Well, it's gonna the same thing at once. So this grid of silver fiber is preventing the electromagnetic field from essentially getting on the other side, same as this grid does. It's just very important that it's a conductive material like silver in order to be effective, whereas cotton, you can create the same grid, would not do anything because it doesn't have any conductive properties, so it doesn't interact with the electric field of the wireless radiation.
Wow, gotcha. So there, I mean, sorry, I've got so many questions for you. There's multiple different wavelengths of radiation, from visible light, UV to gamma, microwave,
correct,
5G, 3G, all that stuff. So is there some wavelengths that are small enough that can get through and some that they can't? Or how would you describe sort of that wavelength gradient in response to the garments?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. The way we've built our garment is really focusing on all the frequencies that are being used in consumer devices. So we started with voice, which is the lowest frequency, so cell phone, just pure cell phone communication, which is the lowest frequencies generally used by consumer devices, as well as then Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 4G and 5G that came out more recently. So across the spectrum, we're blocking 99.9%. And then obviously you can get into frequencies that we're not blocking because the garments was not designed this way. So X-rays, for instance, which we wouldn't really be as effective as for wireless radiation. We've never tested for X-rays. We didn't build the device for that, nor would I go into Chernobyl with a lens thinking that I'm protected. Like we're starting to be in wavelengths that are not really effective. Interestingly, though, talking about UV being a wavelength and generally visible light, we are UV protective. So we are UBF 50 plus, which is the highest the highest protection you can get from your garments. Most people don't know this, but a traditional t-shirt or traditional apparel most of the time doesn't really protect you from the sun as much as you'd want. And a lot of harmful UVs are actually going through the fibers of your garments. So the way we've constructed all of our garments, especially the t-shirt, which is a little bit more important than the underwear in this specific use case, is also protecting from the harmful UVs from the sun. So that's an added benefit.
Well, I guess it just depends on what beach you're at. Right.
Vancouver is not.
Well, we've got a couple spots. Yeah.
So my question was, how does it compare to some of the other things that are out there that are blocking EMF, or they speak to blocking EMF? So whether that's like the tents, I think, and the blankets, and like just some of these other fabrics and things that are out there that people can put into their homes,
or maybe even like those covers over your cell phones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the safe sleeves.
Yeah. This is always a topic where I'm gonna tiptoe around because I don't want to be. This is not really well. I would put it this way: if people are interested in this, they can watch the tech talk that I did on lamps. But generally speaking, when we started with lamps, when we got started, there were a bunch of products out there that claimed to be mitigating EMFs, and I tested almost all of them. And what happens is either they didn't do anything, or they were actually doing the opposite and increasing EMFs. And that's specifically true for a lot of the cell phone cases out there that are claiming to protect you from EMF. And I'll explain why. So the devices that there were so the most popular ones were probably the cell phone stickers or the cell phone cases. So the stickers claim to be modifying how the antenna is receiving, your cell phone antenna is receiving data and therefore lowering the amount of EMF that they receive. And the cases kind of similarly are saying that they integrate that they are essentially radiation proof on the side of the case. And so that as long as you're putting and that they're reducing EMF because of this. And whilst it's probably true for most cases, because it's very easy, like if you take an aluminum sheet, it is blocking EMF. So you can also buy a normal case, put an aluminum sheet in between this and your case, and you'll have exactly the same effect. But I would not recommend this, and here is why. In both instances, what happens is when your cell phone is struggling to find a cell phone connection, it's emitting more EMF in order to get that connection with the antennas. And so with a cell phone case that has some degree, like some aluminum around the antenna or a sticker that is modifying how the antenna works, generally speaking, what it does is it prevents the cell phone from optimally getting reception, which is the case where it's interestingly, when you have the most reception, is the case where you have the least amount of EMF emitted by your phone, because your phone is like, oh yeah, you're right there, like I can see you, all good, no need to. Whereas like otherwise it's screaming like, where are you, and inundating you with EMFs. So we've tested this. We've had a few friends who had these. It was very interesting to see their faces when we're taking an EMF meter, testing with and without the case, and seeing that there is a very strong increase in amount of EMFs. So most products out there, and then you had the a lot of like salt or crystals that are supposedly absorbing EMFs or clearing the air around you, and there is just no scientific evidence at all, or scientific basis for this whatsoever. So I'm coming from an engineering background. Seeing this and testing it with the EMF meters, there's been just no evidence on this and that any of this was working. So we're the only company out there that has done testing in real life human settings, which is like the human phantom testing that I was talking about, which is how much actual reduction are we seeing on your body. And we've taken it a step further, and this is still in the making right now, but we've done testing on internal internal data as well, in order to see what the impact of wearing lens when exposed to EMF is on your body. And so we're tracking a variety of factors. The studies are not public yet. They'll probably be at the end of the year. But what we're seeing is on some factors, and I can disclose some of them, but some of them are sleep, for instance. We're seeing a significant improvement when wearing lens versus not wearing lens. So that's kind of how we managed to become number one in this market in such a short amount of time as well, is because we built on one element, which was trust. And how did we build trust? By explaining how the technology works in a very clear and simple manner, and B, testing in real life settings and having these tests available for everyone to see, which is not the case for most companies out there.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love how you answered that too. One of the things that I think people just aren't fully aware of is this sort of invisible field of electromagnetics that are affecting us on a regular basis. And it's never just one thing. It's a conglomerate of many things. Like it's in one's individual responsibility with regards to their diet and all those other things that are going to influence what these rays and wavelengths and frequencies have. I'm curious, like, is there any downside to wearing EMF protection? Let's say when you're out in nature or you're swimming in the ocean, you want to receive all the benefit. Is there any sort of like you're creating interference for the kind of wavelengths and frequencies and the nutrients or the grounding effect that you get from the environment?
Yeah, I mean, like for the grounding effect, as long as you're barefoot, like we shouldn't be interfering with this at all. Yeah. As for the rest, I don't think so. I'm never tried to swim in Emf apparel. I'm sure it's not super comfortable. No, I mean, yeah. I guess I guess if you're going on a hike, there are more appropriate fabrics that are going to be more absorbent or that kind of stuff than lambs. There is one added benefit though of our garment if you're going on a hike, which is that we have a very high amount of silver, which is naturally antimicrobial. So we'll be essentially removing the bacteria from, the bacteria from your sweat is what makes your sweat smell bad, sorry. And so we're removing these factors. So we're also anti-odor. It's kind of nice after a 10 hours hike. I did the half dome hike in Yosemite with a lamb's t-shirt, and I was still smelling fresh after that, which was kind of cool.
Wow. That's amazing.
So yeah, I don't know.
Apparently I need some, yeah. Let's talk about hormones and fertility and that kind of thing.
I'm curious, just in your research too, you kind of spoke to a little bit of how you can compare it to like the exhaust of a car. Like, were there other things that you came across that were maybe shocking to you that isn't like public knowledge? And how do you feel EMF is affecting fertility today? Because I know many couples that are challenged with fertility, and a lot of it's unexplained. And I do think our environment has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I'll start with fertility, and then I'll get into the rest of your question, which is a little bit bigger to answer. So with regards to fertility, first of all, I'm happy to report that we have quite a few lambs babies out there.
Oh, that's so cute.
So we've had a number of people who were struggling to conceive and started wearing lambs, and then shortly after were able to conceive, or who really struggled and had to go see fertility doctors for many years for their first or second child. And then after lambs, like, were able to conceive on their first or second try.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
really cool.
That's something that obviously is huge for us, and it is a major factor of motivation when we're going to work every day. And the reason for this probably stems from the studies that have been done on wireless exposure and fertility. Probably the best known study comes from the Cleveland Clinic, where they analyzed data on more than 1,000 men wearing their cell phones in their pockets for different amounts of time throughout the day. And what they found is that men who were keeping their cell phones in their pockets for more than 4 hours per day were seeing roughly a 50% decrease in sperm count, as well as a decrease in sperm quality factors such as morphology, speed, lifespan, and correct DNA. And usually these factors were impacted by 30 to 50%. So which is super significant.
Yeah.
And we were able to interestingly replicate this data in real life with some people who were willing to test their sperm before wearing lamps and then after wearing lamps for like 3 months, and we did see an increase of 50% in like essentially these people doubling the sperm count. What we did is not really necessarily representative, because sperm count is super complicated and there are a lot of factors that can impact it, including what you ate the previous day and whatnot. But at least, the studies that have been done on the question are very clear, which is that exposure to wireless radiation can drastically impact your fertility. Obviously, it's not the only factor, and if male fertility has been dropping by 30% in the past 15 years, it's probably also because of what we eat and other environmental factors. But based on the research that is out there, wireless radiation seems to be definitely one of the very significant factors there. And then you were asking about the impact that people might not know. So probably the most well-known one, aside from fertility, is cancer and the risk of developing cancer. And I would say the main one that people don't necessarily know are cardiovascular disease and neurological disorders. And now that I've said that, I'm sure that what what's going on is like, okay, well, this guy created a company which is radiation-proof apparel, and now he's telling us that wireless radiation are responsible for cardiovascular disease, neurological disorders, fertility issues, cancer, probably also like climate change and all this.
Yeah, and viruses too, of course. Throw that
And
in there.
obviously, obviously COVID, like there's no question around this. No, the reason for this is very simple. It's all of these that we've just described, except for viruses and climate change, have generally one common root cause, which is free radicals and oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is when you have an imbalance between free radicals, which are essentially like toxic for your body if they're in if there's it's a small molecule that are missing an electron and that are going to be stealing an electron from a nearby molecule, creating a new free radical, which is going to steal an electron from another nearby molecule and destroying the tissue over time. One very simple example of oxidative stress is if you cut an apple in half and then let it sit on the counter, you'll see the inside becoming brown. That's the tissue of the apple being destroyed by oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is countered, free radicals are countered in our bodies by antioxidants. And when there is an imbalance between antioxidants and free radicals, that triggers what's called oxidative stress. And what studies have shown on the mechanisms of harm of EMFs is that EMFs are having an electric field as well as a magnetic field, are activating channels in our cells, calcium channels that are voltage gated. And this influx of calcium in our cells triggers a cascade of reaction, which leads to an increase in free radicals in our body, and therefore increases the chances of being in a state of oxidative stress. And then the oxidative stress, depending on what else is going on in your body, can increase different risks for different people. So that's why there are so many different factors so many different diseases that can be where exposure to wireless radiation can increase your risk of developing them. But it all stems from this one calcium channels in your body, which is triggered when exposed to wireless radiation. I don't know if I've been super clear here.
No,
you did. It's a difficult thing to explain because we're talking about molecules, and people don't often relate to molecules as well as we do to, like, apples and things like that. But a lot of the research that Dr. Martin Pall shares is describing this phenomenon with like these peroxynitrite molecules, and and basically these effects are showing up as DNA damage. And so how our body's sort of repairing or building itself is getting interfered with, which is propagating the state of inflammation as you described. And yeah, it's so not discussed enough. And it's not easy, I think, for people to wrap their head around. And sometimes just taking some more antioxidants isn't the answer because we're not removing the reasons for why this chronic oxidative stress is there. And obviously EMF.
There's also a whole question around how well are antioxidants are absorbed in our bodies versus the ones that are naturally produced. So yeah, removing and oxidative stress is a very interesting phenomenon for people who want to do a little bit more research into this, because again, like, it's a root cause for a lot of the modern diseases today. And what does trigger oxidative stress? Wireless radiation, we've just discussed this, poor sleep, bad diets, no exercise. So essentially, like, all of the kind of like traditional health advice kind of apply to reduce your risk of like many of those diseases all at once by kind of reducing your likelihood of oxidative stress.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think that people kind of get stuck in is this sort of, well, there's nothing I can do. It's just, this is what life is like. Like we get sort of complacent with the changes that the modern world moves through, and we sort of get stuck in that kind of thinking. And you've created apparel and technology that allows you to be more adaptive to your environment, because I think if we go back to whether or not you like Darwin, but it wasn't necessarily the survival of the fittest. It was those who were most likely to be able to adapt. And this is a technology for the time that we're in. And that's why I feel like it's so important, especially, we're talking about fertility or some of these chronic health issues. If you can take away some of these, things that are driving oxidative damage in the body and driving inflammation, if you can reduce your total body burden, you're going to be healthier and you're going to be more protective. And so let's talk about some of the gear. Like, you've got headgear, you've got shirts, you've got underwear, you've got some cool stuff. Like, let's talk about some of the different gear.
Yeah. So our very first product was underwear. And if you remember the origin story of the company, awesome. Of all of us like taking our cell phones out of our pocket, that's kind of why we started with underwear, to be honest. We're like, well, yeah. we're carrying a cell phone literally not even inches away. Like, we're talking about like less than an inch away from our genitals all day long. So let's start with underwear. And then we kind of went contrary to a lot of apparel companies. We actually don't describe ourselves as an apparel company, rather a health and wellness company. And so we had the same process as a health and wellness company, which is like, what are the most important factors? What are the most important organs to protect? So we created the hats shortly after, and then the t-shirt. And with this, we're able to cover most of your vital organs. So genitals with the underwear, your gut, heart, and lungs with the t-shirt, and obviously your brain with the hats. So we have beanies and caps depending on where you live in the world, and and the weather there. And more recently, we just launched baby apparel as well. So we have a belly band, as well as baby covers and onesies for your little ones. And the baby story is interesting. I was talking about Lem's babies. Well, the parents, after becoming pregnant, kind of reached out and they're like, "That was awesome. Huge believer in protecting myself now. But there is something I care more about than myself now in my life, and that's my baby. Can you do something about this?" So we did.
Sonia right now is going through, okay, I can get a present for this person.
Well, even for our own kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm always thinking about them and their exposure. And not only at home, but everywhere. At school now, they're using technology too. Yeah. And so I think it's important for fertility and all the other reasons, because even in children, like, cancer rates have gone up, and all the different diseases are so much higher than they were in the past. So
yeah, well, I mean, kids, it's interesting because, I mean, even their subarachnoid space is closer to their skull bone density isn't as thick as it is as a fully grown adult. So it's they're more susceptible than us as adults, right?
Yeah, and like, EMFs are being absorbed by the body, and so if you're actually holding your cell phone against your ear, your right ear, you'll have a minimal amount of EMFs be coming out of your other ear, if you will, because your brain is absorbing so much of it. And if you're looking at how much absorption you have in a human brain, in an adult brain versus a kid's brain, because of the skull density, but also the fact that we have a lot more brain, you have a lot more of the overall brain that is being exposed to wireless radiation. And same for all the other organs. I have a lot more pectoral muscle than a baby does to absorb a lot of the radiation before it reaches my heart. And so that's a big reason of why we started with the baby line as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously another huge area of cancer for many women is breast cancer, right? So and again, there's lots of different reasons for why that's there, of course, as we mentioned. But if, let's say, someone working in an environment, I don't know, maybe you're working in an office space and there's like, you're getting blasted in all different directions from many different things. I mean, these things are undergarments you can wear underneath your clothes, or you can, there's ways to just be more protective, I think, in your environment that I think people need to understand.
Can I request that you make a shawl? A scarf, like a long one that we can wrap ourselves in with.
It's a good idea.
I'll put it down. We
Add to the
actually
list.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
actually, for anyone who orders lambs, you'll receive an email from me, and that's actually coming from me, and it's actually going to my mailbox. And this email is asking you where you heard about us, and also what you want us to create. And then we take this into account, and we have a whole document where we're listing out customer requests, how many times they've been requested, et cetera, et cetera. So for people listening, you have a direct impact on our product development cycle as well. And if you happen to text the number that you can find on our Instagram description, we are also involving afterwards our text community in the product cycle, in the product development cycle. So that's something that we find very important. We were born because we had people supporting us from the get-go, and so we're trying to keep this very close link with our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I imagine another common one must be like pet clothes, because obviously our pets are.
We're getting this a ton actually, and as a pet dad myself, I can see why people say that. We have a very long request for humans first, and we're gonna stick to that for a while.
So where can people find you, and what's your Instagram handle? We'll have it in their show notes, but if you want to just tell our listeners.
Yeah, GetLambs, GETLAMBS.com, and then the handle on all social media is at GetLambs as well. So very easy to find us, and feel free to send us an email, to just reach out if you have any questions or if you're requesting any specific products. And we're also have a happiness guarantee policy, which is again like we want people who are wearing lamps to love wearing lamps, and so if there is anything wrong with your order or anything, we'll make it right. And yeah, so you can try it completely risk-free. If you don't like it, we'll happily take it back and give you your money back.
Cool.
It's awesome. I love the passion that you share, and I love that it came from you're solving a problem, and it's people like you that are, disrupting sort of the commercial field or the commercial space with new innovative technology that's supporting people's health. It's so needed in the world that we're in right now. So I know Sonny's got a final question for you that I'll let her jump into.
This is a question I ask all our guests. If tomorrow was the last day that you were going to be on this earth, what would be the impact that you want to leave, or the message that you want mankind, humankind, personkind to believe about themselves?
I'm gonna take a second before answering such an important question. Actually, it's something that I went to this seminar of Wim Hof breathing technique and ice baths, and I was lying there doing the breathing exercises, which were incredible. And one thing that I thought about doing this was I should spend more time taking care of myself. And so I don't know if this is the one for mankind generally, but I think from an individual perspective, we're all, a lot of us at least, are in this like hamster wheel of like running. And we have so many important things to do, picking up the kids from school, making dinner, calling, like whatever it is. And I feel like sometimes taking the time to pause for a minute and be grateful, and then B, also realize that, well, it's all great to be busy, but if you're not taking care of your own body and your own mind, what's like you're not going to be busy as long, and B, life is probably not going to be as tasteful. So trying to remind myself of that as well on a regular basis, and take time to meditate, but also obviously trying to make the right choice as often as possible, which doesn't mean that I'm doing it all the time, but gonna go and have lunch, and it's gonna be a healthy lunch today, and yeah, just having those tiny bits of good habits in life. And LEMS is one of them. Like when I'm putting in them on in the morning, I'm like, okay, well, at least I've done this today for my body. That's an easy win.
Yeah, no, I love that, because and when you take care of the self, you take care of the whole, right? So you're
Yes.
living by example then, and others will follow suit. So that I think does impact everyone in the world when we do that.
Yeah,
agree.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah,
Probably
you.
would be less war if everyone was satisfied.
Yes, if everyone was happy and used humor and everything.
Exactly.
And,
yeah, and it's like full circle to how you shared your business, and how you wanted to share your business was really through that self-care, that nurturing, that self-love, and even how you took the breath before you decided to be really intentional with your answer. I mean, it's great. It's just, it feels like such a big win for humanity when there's companies such as yours that are really, like I said, solving these problems, really looking to the future, protecting our kids. It's awesome. It's been so great to chat with you, and to hear your perspective, Arthur. It's you're a gift, and we look forward to getting a pair ourselves.
Yes.
Well, thanks. Before that, I can't let you say this without saying that I'm just the face, and there are amazing people, and that wouldn't happen without A, our amazing team, B, the amazing advisors that are supporting us on a daily basis, and C, obviously, our delightful customers who are the ones enabling us to make this happen. So yeah, and thanks to people like you guys who are spreading the word and helping people be healthier on a daily basis. That's amazing.
Awesome.
Sure.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's community work, isn't it?
It is. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Arthur.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too.